3 notices of appeal have been filed with the Alabama Supreme Court contesting in one way or another the recent rate hike granted to Alabama Power Company. One of those appeals was filed by the Legal Services Corporation. That group has listed on its notice 12 reasons they feel the increase is too much. The first 9 deal with the magnitude of the increase. The last 3 question the PSC's decision to deny any testimony on rate designs.
And it's our position that the question of granting the company a rate increase and the question of rate design, that is how that increase is to be distributed amongst the different classes of customers, are so intertwined that they must be considered together in the same proceeding.
Joining Legal Services in filing the appeals was the Attorney General's office, which hand-scripted its notice at the last moment. Their notice lists no specifics, only an intent to appeal. The third notice was filed to the state Supreme Court from the Alabama Power Company officials. Utility spokesman Bryant Allen says his company is not happy with the total amount of the increase, nor the fact that 8% of it will not come into effect until January 1980.
We also question the 11.7% return on equity that this order stated when in 1977, well over 2 years ago, the Public Service Commission agreed to allow us 14.2 if we could earn that much.
Last year, Legal Services won an appeal of a power company rate case, but it dealt with a procedural error in the hearings. This appeal deals with the amount of the increase and what evidence was heard in reaching that decision. There are no firm dates on any possible Supreme Court actions on the appeals filed. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
About 100 persons attended the coffee in Senator Heflin's honor. Mayor Emery Falmer introduced Heflin, who spoke in favor of military growth in Alabama. Then he answered questions from the audience. Most of the questions centered on energy. 2 persons were angry that Amtrak's train from Montgomery to Florida may be canceled.
It's been operating and it's continually losing money. Prior to the recommendation of the Department of Transportation, a ticket that you bought on Amtrak, the passenger paid about 1/3 of it. The government paid about 2/3 of the cost of what it was per passenger.
Heflin says the U.S. must become more self-sufficient when it comes to energy, and he thinks the windfall profits tax is a good concept, though it has some problems. He says the legislation will have to undergo some changes before it can be put into practice. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
The Alabama Commission on Higher Education met to discuss off-campus course offerings for 2- and 4-year colleges. At the outset, the commission determined by resolution that it had the power to regulate certain junior college off-campus courses. State School Superintendent Dr. Wayne Teague objected to the resolution, and State Board member Roscoe Roberts told the commission that it was the belief of the school board that they were the only ones with the power to cut off campus junior college courses. Dr. Teague says a bill passed in the last session of the legislature did a lot to strengthen the commission, but this did not include such regulation.
State Board of Education, we think, still has the authority to regulate, to open the closed branch campuses. I'd like to say the State Board and I have been strong supporters of giving the Commission more authority, and we strongly support the move, but this time we think the law that was passed, House Bill 494, does not give them that authority.
Former State Senator Sid McDonald, who is an advisor to Governor James on higher education, was at the meeting also. He said the intent of the legislation was to give the Commission power over off-campus courses.
But politics have come into play. Everybody should be remembered that the largest political force in this state, other than the AEA, is the junior college group. So they've gone to work politically, and now they're trying to undo the first major steps of bringing some order and some direction and some economies to Alabama's system of higher education that we've had in many, many years.
McDonald said the State Board of Education can look for the governor to support the Commission's position on the legislation. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The Farm Bureau 20-item market basket costs $23.40. That's a 2.3% drop in food prices since July, keeping the inflation rate for food in Alabama at less than 4% annually. Savings were shown at the meat counter. Pork was down 4.8%, poultry down 4.2%, and beef, which has been more expensive in recent months, also showed a slight decrease in August. Seasonal products like potatoes and tomatoes were slightly cheaper. But Deborah Buss with the Alabama Farm Bureau says while the consumer is saving, the farmer is still losing money.
They're not doing as well as consumers. As a matter of fact, some of the pork and poultry producers are finding that they aren't getting as much for their product as they're taking to produce these products.
The Montgomery area market basket price of $23.40 was the second highest in the state, surpassed only by South Alabama, where the 20-item basket cost $23.64. The cheapest was in Northeast Alabama, with a total of $23.23. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
George Corley Wallace, the man who has played an important role in Alabama history and that of the United States, celebrated his 60th birthday surrounded by friends. There were former campaign workers wearing Wallace buttons from days gone by and members of the Wallace administration reminiscing about the past. The former governor, however, looks more toward the future. At 60 years young, Wallace is now a gubernatorial consultant, but says his primary responsibility will be to head the Department of Rehabilitative Services for the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
The position was created by the legislature as a result of disability, and if I'm ever called upon in that regard, yes.
How about your plans for the future? Is there any specific
I have no plans for the future other than working with the University of Alabama, working toward acquiring funds to expand the physical rehabilitation services and other necessary services for the health of the people of Alabama.
At the moment, no political aspirations?
No political aspirations. I've always said I'd never say never, but I have no plans at this time.
Food and music helped to make the party a true celebration, but it was the former governor's words of thanks that highlighted the afternoon picnic. Wallace told the crowd he had done the best he could, then reminded them, "I still love all of you." From Jasmine Hill, north of Montgomery, Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Tonight we'll address ourselves to the question of why LSU coach Charlie McClendon is being forced out this year. Two reasons seem the most reasonable to us. Number one, the economics of the times, and number two, recruiting. LSU, along with most major universities, must have large contributions from well-heeled alumni to survive these days. Some of this very influential alumni are tired of losing to Alabama. They want to change, and the easiest way is to change the head coach. It is a fact that LSU loses entirely too many blue-chip athletes within its state borders. Many LSU insiders feel a change at the top would help restructure LSU's recruiting system and bring in more talent. Down here, there's a name a day for a successor to Charlie Mack: Lou Holtz, Bobby Bowden, even left field guesses like Joe Namath and Fran Tarkington. Athletic Director Paul Dietzel says a successor will be named soon after the Tulane game at the end of the season. This is Phil Snow on the Southeastern Conference Skywriters Tour in Baton Rouge.
Suppose we went before the court of world opinion and say that the truth, that this arms race, this potential for a nuclear holocaust is insanity. I believe the world would side with us, and I believe the pressure on the Soviet Union would require them to get back to the negotiating table. And after all, the world has outlawed poison gas, hasn't it? And I would rather for my grandchildren, if I had to make the awesome choice, to die in a poison gas rather than to be burned to a crisp in a nuclear holocaust. So I think that's what we ought to do, is to go back and get a true arms reduction treaty instead of this escalation treaty which the President has sent to the Senate.
Position will come from those who do not study the plan, first of all. we would anticipate the members of the State Board of Education to oppose it because they would obviously not want to give up their present authority. We could expect most of the presidents of the junior colleges to oppose this. Well, this is a total of less than 30 people. We can't let the interests and the political ambitions and the career ambitions of that few people get in the way of a decision on what to do with a major component, the junior college system, of our higher education effort in this state. Again, we would make it better, we would make it broader, we would make it more stable, we would guarantee continuity of each institution.
Since the closing of Craig Air Force Base, there has been speculation that more Alabama military bases could be shut down. But U.S. Senator Howell Heflin says he has spoken with top military men in Washington about the futures of Maxwell, Gunter, and Air University.
We met with a lot of them, from four-star generals down to colonels and majors and people that were all involved in this, and we said, don't you believe that education in the Air Force is here to stay? Oh, yes, yes. Well, you don't mean that you're going to ever be closing Maxwell with what you have out there as an investment. Oh, no, we'll never close it. Well, I said, don't you think that education in the future for the Air Force is going to be extremely important, particularly in regards to technical approaches and decisions that are made by machines and made with the use of computers? Oh, yes. Well, then isn't there a great future for Air University in Montgomery? And they all say yes.
Heflin hopes the bases in central Alabama will continue to grow rather than suffer cutbacks. He believes there should be more coordination between the computers at Gunter and the educational aspects of Air University. He says there may even be a possibility of using the deserted living quarters at Craig to house personnel from other growing military installations. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
Are you the coach at Lanier? Thank you, sir. We wish you all the luck. Well, we're through eating. Thank you, Ray.
I thought I had relinquished the floor, but if you really want a speech, I'll start one, but I better sit.
Nathan, it awakened a lot of sleeping memories and made me want a fall convocation on August 26th, and Florence is off the beaten path as far as...
It's because the white media encouraged the blacks to start saying, well, this is inferior film. The blacks themselves started putting their own product down. Instead of going there for laughing, enjoying yourself, just having a ball and watching black heroes perform, they were going there trying to find, oh man, this picture wasn't put together great. They didn't have this, and look at that. Look at the door didn't close. Look at this and look at that. They were going there as critics instead of going there to be entertained.
Tuskegee, Alabama, was distraught that no black Americans...
And you know, he got the part in this movie called The $6,000 Nigger that's playing at the Pekin without being auditioned. We never auditioned him. I called my director and my producer on the phone. I said, man, I got a guy down here. No, I didn't say I got a guy. I said, I got a nigga down here, man, that's good. Okay. And when he said, what? I said, man, I got a nigga down here that can act his butt off. His name is Lee Cross. He's got the part of Jim.
And that was it?
That was it.
Okay,
my people believe me.
Thank you.
After 3 straight 2-9 seasons, Vanderbilt has a new athletic director, a new coach, and a new approach. They've hired a young, energetic Steve Sloan disciple named George McIntyre. I'm sure it's no coincidence that the new man was the #1 assistant of Sloan, the only coach to give Vanderbilt some success in recent history. And athletic director Roy Kramer has guaranteed enough money to recruit on a national level. Already 8,000 schools have been contacted, compared with only 800 last year. Vanderbilt will go after the exceptional student, who also happens to be an exceptional football player, and they will do it on a national scale, much to the way Stanford University does it. It just might work if the recruiting budget can stand it. And on that point, Kramer has hired one of the best fundraisers in the country. All that makes the future a little brighter around here, but there's the approaching season to worry about right now. McIntyre is trying to build some confidence for the short run and some team unity. They'll need all of that against the toughest schedule in the Southeastern Conference. This is Phil Snow on the SEC Skywriters Tour in Nashville, Tennessee.
Members of the Montgomery Sheriff's and Police Departments and ambulance attendants hiked into the woods off South Court Street to recover the body. Their job was made more difficult because there was no easy access to the stretch of track where the man fell off the train. Recovery crews had to walk about a half-mile down the railroad tracks to get to the area. Chief James Duke says 2 Spanish-speaking men reported the accident.
We got a report that 2 subjects got off a train down in South Montgomery County, Grady, Alabama, and our unit picked them up and brought them back to town. And to our office, we got a person who could speak Spanish to come to the office and get some information from the 2 companions, and they led us to this location. Apparently, when the train passed this narrow bridge, his foot hit the steel part of the bridge and threw him off the train. He fell beneath the bridge into the creek, and the body has been recovered.
Duke says the Sheriff's Department is conducting an investigation to learn more details, but he suspects no foul play. From South Montgomery County, Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
Hundreds of people braved occasional rain showers this weekend so they could sit on the shore of Lake Eufaula and watch championship boat racing. Nearly 300 boats were entered in 13 different classes of boat racing, and just as many people came to watch man, machine, and some of Mother Nature. After the races, men and boats returned to the pit area, split a $17,000 purse, and contemplated coming back and doing it again next year. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News, Eufaula.
U.S. Attorney Barry Teague said that Robert L. Brown, Jr., one of the defendants in the vote-buying scheme, has pleaded guilty before federal district judge Sam Pointer. Teague described this as a turning point in the case that began with indictments from the June grand jury.
He bought votes on behalf of Sheriff Thompson in that runoff election by means of getting the voter to request assistance in the voting booth itself. And after this was done, he would then go in there and cast that voter's vote for Sheriff Thompson, then give them either $5 or $10, depending upon which voter, and then they would leave the booth.
Sheriff Thompson's opponent in the September runoff was J.M. Bill Elliott, who died 10 days later from a shotgun blast. 7 people have already pleaded guilty to charges of buying votes for Elliott, including the 2 brothers of Robert Brown, Jr., who admits buying votes for Thompson. The penalty for vote buying is a 5-year prison sentence and/or a $10,000 fine. Sentencing for Brown has been set for September 10th before Judge Robert Varner. Sheriff Charlie Will Thompson goes to trial September 14th. Both will take place in Opelika. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News at the federal courthouse.
And everything from that standpoint. But one of the things that has helped reduce crime in the city of is a group working with the Montgomery Police Department.
But we do appreciate it. We do.
Dignitaries from everywhere are going to support us by furnishing us cakes to open our program with, and we will open this day's sale with an auction at 9 o'clock at the East Dale Mall, where we will sell to the highest bidder those cakes cooked by the dignitaries. Then in addition to that, we'll have tables from one end of the mall to the other with the mile of cakes of every type. We should have this neighborhood watch going on throughout the city of Montgomery. We're probably reaching 1,500 homes now where...
Kay Ivey was the first woman Governor Bob James appointed as a cabinet member. In her role as an executive assistant to the governor, Ms. Ivey is in charge of matters relating to social services and women. In talking of social services, she said the governor asked her some basic questions. One was how much duplication is there in this area, and the other, why must the state be regulated so much in order to receive federal dollars? Ms. Ivey said if particular requirements are not met, the State Health Planning Development Agency could lose the state between $31 and $331 million in federal public health funds. In updating the current Medicaid nursing home situation, Ms. Ivey said two problems exist: how to get a handle on who is eligible for the service and finding a way to monitor the number of times participants use the service. There was some positive news about the Medicaid system. According to Ms. Ivey, the new fiscal intermediary for the Medicaid system will be required to maintain interest accounts for the floating money, with the state getting the interest. She also said there are penalties for late payments of claims, and the fiscal intermediary will be paid on a basis of claims paid and not claims processed, as has been the case in the past. She says women are receiving special consideration in the Fob James administration now. Ms. Ivey says part of her job is finding qualified women to serve on boards and commissions in the state. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
I assume we can get underway now.
We are today going to give a grant of $40,000 to begin the establishment of this center, and that amount of money is more than matched by the university. Dr. Matthews over here.
Many times small businesses, because of language barriers and other technical problems, don't have the resources available to them to take advantage of those opportunities. One of the reasons I feel I was sent to Washington by the people that I represent is to aid in the economic development of this state. The opening up of new markets around the world must mean something to Alabama, and one of the ways for that to mean something is for us to take advantage not only of the resources at the federal level, and we were proud to have assisted in working with this particular, the location of this particular institution here, but also to take advantage of the resources that are already available to us.
Say hello to Duke. He's the one with the furry black coat there on the right. Impressed? Well, you should be. The 3-year-old black Labrador has been called the best trained dog in America and is valued at more than $200,000. For instance, how many dogs do you know that can jump rope? Of course, retrieving is what Duke does best. But the dog not only retrieves the bird, he uses the bird call and fires the gun.
Years ago, when I first started working with Duke, I started out training him for a sports show act, and at the time another fellow that was in the sports show business said that there wasn't really any room for another retriever act in the sports show business. So I wanted to think up some tricks that would make it a lot different from just a basic retriever act. And when I got a wild idea of having one do his own duck calling and goose calling and shooting his own shotgun, among a few more other unusual tricks, that's when it took off.
He can shoot a shotgun, he can call a bird call, he can jump rope. Is there anything Duke cannot do?
Well, he doesn't clean the ducks yet. I still have to do that.
Big Orange Country is big football country. 80,000 fans fill up the stadium on Saturday. They're about to add 10,000 more seats to try to satisfy the demand. They fervently want a winner. And the man on the hot seat is Johnny Majors, entering his third campaign. With all this high expectation, John gets a little irritated when he's asked if he must win this year. And he's probably right. His contract is solid for the next 4 years, and he quickly reminds all future recruits he'll be around for a while. Tennessee rallied last year, winning 4 of their last 5 for a break-even season. They hope to carry that into the 1979 campaign. A Majors coach team has yet to beat Auburn or Alabama, and that has to be a priority item this year. The players privately say Auburn is the key to their season. No question the Vols are getting better, but so is everybody else. That Auburn-Tennessee game on September 29th will be a big one. This is Phil Snow on the Sky. Knoxville, Tennessee. The Kentucky Wildcats had great years in 1976 and 77, winning a total of 19 games. They went to a bowl. They had trouble last year, and this year may be even worse. It's a matter of manpower. Only 71 scholarship players are on the practice field now. Well, really, there are 8 more, but they can only practice. They've been suspended for the entire season by Coach Fran Kersey. The 8 were charged with rape last winter. Although the grand jury never returned a true bill, the incident has had a negative effect on the Cats, as you might expect. The suspension of the 8 and the problems of recruiting under probation and the other incidents with the law that have plagued the Cats in recent years have contributed to the lack of numbers at UK. Kersey says he'll nominate himself for Coach of the Year if he wins 5 games. Most of us believe. The Cats don't have a running back who's played it down. Their quarterback is a 5th-year man who has played 30 downs in an entire career, not the stuff of which championships are made. This is Phil Snow on the SEC Skywriters Tour in Lexington, Kentucky.
If we win our first 3 ball games, it will be some kind of miracle. That is not the kind of optimistic statement you would like to hear from a head coach, but Carver High's Davis Brock has reason to be pessimistic. The Wolverines open against Jeff Davis, Dothan, and then Lee, 3 of the better teams in the state. Carver will attack that kamikaze schedule with a basic wishbone offense led by quarterback Tim Buffet. Marvin Hill, Dwayne Williams, and David Honeycutt will do the running behind a small but experienced front line. Defensively, the Wolverines use a basic 5-man front and will show numerous stunts from that formation. The defensive secondary will be a definite strength where all of last year's starters return. But the key to Carver's season is in sheer numbers. Not many players tried out for the team this year, and injuries would cripple the ball club.
We don't have any depth. If we had a little about 8-10 more linemen, we'd be in good shape. But no need wishing we don't have them. So our big key is going to keep our first line healthy, in the line, first personnel in the line healthy. We've got plenty of backs, offensively and defensively, but just don't have many offensive and defensive linemen.
Okay, now, Pete, let's look at this. They're in a 1 coverage. You know what 1 coverage is?
Lanier's head football coach Cliff Little does a great Bear Bryant imitation. Little says his team will be awfully little, awfully slow, awfully young, and they'll be lucky to win ball games. Besides that streak of pessimism, Little also has another Bryant trademark. He wins football games. Last year's team went 11-2 and won the Region 3 championship. This year's edition of the Poets will be just as strong. Pete Daniels will quarterback the club. He's rated one of the top 10 signal callers in the entire nation. Daniels will throw to a competent pair of wide receivers in Tim Ward and Mike Slater. The offense will be good. The defense will be even better. Lee Tarver and Willie McMillan return at linebacker, and the entire secondary returns as well. Lanier High may be awfully little, slow, and young, but they will also be awfully good.
Limbo status, I guess you would say at this time. He gave me license to come here today, and people that I have an opportunity to meet and to know and to work with, to me, on each occasion, I hope that you have had some interest in finch bird. If you ever seen the Ouzel finch bird, it's a very ungainly creature with big feet and a couple of tail feathers and a long gangly neck. I remember the assassination attempt on Governor Wallace in '72, because that put me into probably the most strenuous 2 years of my life, as Doc would testify to here, because the governor was incapacitated for about that length of time. And at that time, I was his finance director, and just by sheer presence of being there, a great deal of the duties fell upon that office. And I suppose that was the most difficult and trying period, the years 72 and 73, that I have had in state government.
The program was sponsored by the Alabama Environmental Quality Association. Governor James told the gathering he is glad to see a recommitment to a clean environment.
But it seems to me in the last 10 or 15 years there's a yearning in so many Alabamians and Americans to look for recreation that takes them back close to nature. I can't ever understand why we left that kind of thing, to be frank with it.
Awards were presented to groups and individuals for enhancing the quality of Alabama's environment. The Montgomery Clean City Committee received first place in the large city government division. In the same division, the city's property inspection branch claimed honorable mention. A new statewide community improvement plan was introduced during the program. Called Project Pride, it's designed to help the state with problems urbanization and industrial development have brought to other parts of the country. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
In the first day of trial, Payne says it was self-defense when he returned fire, shot and killed Columbus, Georgia truck driver Clyde Davis at a local truck stop last April 15th. He is being defended by Montgomery attorney Vaughn Hill Robinson. Prosecutor's Chief Assistant D.A. Jimmy Poole and Assistant District Attorney Ellen Brooks charged that Payne drove to the spot where Davis's truck was parked after he and the black truck driver finished an argument over the CB radio that included racial slurs aimed at each other. The prosecutor said Payne was not acting in self-defense because Davis had angrily given his location to the gas station operator during their quarrel over the air, and Payne followed that up. Defense attorney Robinson is attempting to convince the jury that Jim Payne did not follow up on invitations to fight issued by Davis, but was there on business and simply drove by Davis's parked truck on the way back to his gas station across the highway from the truck stop.
Payne is expected to call at least 20 character witnesses, and the jury is expected to receive the case by noon tomorrow. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Montgomery County Courthouse.
Auburn University at Montgomery is beginning a program unique to the area. The program is called Opportunity College. Those in the program are high school graduates and must be unemployed workers under the Comprehensive Employment Training Act, or CETA. Dr. Joe Boyer is the director of the program. He says CETA workers can get personalized instruction in basic math and English, which is intended to catch these students up to college-level instruction. At the same time, the participants get help in finding and obtaining career-oriented jobs. The program, Boyer says, was generated by AUM and funded through the Departments of HEW and Labor and could become a national pilot program.
Although it was not designed to be, it was designed to satisfy some of the problems we find here in the Montgomery area. But we would hope that other states, other communities would take a look at us and see what we've done and then adopt the program for them if they have this kind of need.
Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Senator Stewart told reporters fuel from agricultural products can provide at least 20% of the nation's liquid fuel needs by 1986. An Auburn University agriculturist says alcohol fuel is technologically viable now, though such energy will be more expensive than gasoline for the next few years. Stewart says the independence of farmers being able to provide their own fuel is essential.
I would point out that this will not only make our farmers or our agricultural interests energy independent, but it also will mean that they will contribute back to the total energy needs of the country. In other words, they won't only meet their needs, but they'll also contribute something to the total energy needs in the country.
Stewart's bill would provide $1 billion in loans and $250 million in grants to aid farmers who want to set up stills for alcohol fuel. The most feasible products include wood waste, sweet sorghum, and sugar cane. Dr. Wilson says Alabama can be a leader in developing fuel from crops, especially because of its long growing season and mild winters. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.